Your hourly Logos plus Ruami intelligence report is attached, covering all 6 pillars: Epstein files, WEF, Great Reset, technocracy, biblical fulfillment, inverted pyramid, and awakening report. Coordinate 127-113. Logos plus Ruami intelligence report executive summary. The past 24 hours have produced significant movements across all 6 pillars. The DOJ Inspector General formally opened a review of the Epstein files release amid accusations that the Trump administration used heavy redactions to shield powerful figures. With 300-plus high-profile names confirmed released, including connections to Musk, Bannon, Lutnick, and the Clintons. On the technocracy front, Meta's covert plan to launch facial recognition smart glasses during a dynamic political environment was exposed, prompting a coalition of 70-plus civil rights organizations to demand an immediate halt. The awakening pillar is surging. A second nationwide day of action is planned for April 25th, following the largest coordinated protest in U.S. history on March 28th, 8 to 9 million participants. Biblical archaeology continues to accelerate with authentic Dead Sea Scroll fragments now on public display, and the full Siloam Pool excavation commenced. Across all 6 pillars, the pattern is consistent. Systemic accountability is being suppressed while surveillance infrastructure, financial control architecture, and resistance movements simultaneously intensify. Pillar 1. Epstein, Corruption Files. 1. DOJ Watchdog opens formal review of Epstein files release, April 23 to 24, 2026. The Justice Department's Inspector General launched a formal audit to determine whether the DOJ complied with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, passed November 2025. The review examines how records were identified, redacted, and released, and how victim concerns were handled post-publication. Acting AG Todd Blanche denies wrongdoing, but multiple lawmakers accuse the Trump administration of strategic redactions shielding powerful figures. The audit announcement came 2 days after Trump nominated Don R. Berthiaume as Inspector General. Sources: New York Times, Al Jazeera, Reuters. 2. AG Bondi releases all Epstein files, 300-plus high-profile names confirmed, April 2026. AG Pam Bondi announced the release of all Epstein investigation records, including 300-plus high-profile names. The DOJ published 3.5 million responsive pages. Documents confirmed enduring relationships between Epstein and Elon Musk, Howard Lutnick, Steve Bannon, and Bill Clinton. Ghislaine Maxwell helped advise the Clinton Global Initiative and arranged $1 in funding. The Clintons were voted in contempt by the House Oversight Committee in January 2026. Sources: DOJ, Chalk, Fox News. 3. UN experts demand accountability for Epstein trafficking allegations, April 16, 2026. UN human rights experts issued a joint statement calling for full and transparent investigation. The statement described shocking evidence of trafficking of girls and young women across multiple international borders, continuing over decades, with devastating failures of prevention. It called state responses wholly inadequate and urged survivor-centered reparations, truth processes, and non-repetition guarantees. The UN noted that implicated individuals include senior politicians, public figures, diplomats, global business leaders, and leading academics. Source: OHCHR 4. DOJ Index SPLC on 11 counts, April 21, 2026. Acting AG Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel announced the federal indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center on 11 counts, including wire fraud, false bank statements, and money laundering conspiracy. The DOJ alleges SPLC secretly funneled 3M Plus to white supremacist and extremist group members via a paid informant program. Legal experts widely describe the prosecution as politically motivated. Sources: DOJ, your CNN, NPR 5, DOJ Fraud Division 340, M Plus Enforcement Actions, April 10-17, 2026. The DOJ's National Fraud Enforcement Division, launched January 8, 2026, announced enforcement actions totaling over 340 million across multiple fraud schemes, with multiple arrests and convictions during April 10-17, 2026. Source: ChangeFlow. Pillar 2, WEF, here Great Reset. 1. UN Youth Forum calls for urgent 2030 SDG action. April 2026. The UN Youth Forum, April 2026, New York, focused on accelerating the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Only 18% of SDGs are currently on track. Youth delegates called for urgent multilateral action, framing the 2030 Agenda as a non-negotiable global commitment and demanding structural reforms to global financing. Source: UN News. 2. WEF, post-Schwab era begins. First Davos without founder. January 2026. The 2026 WEF annual meeting, January 1923, was the first held without Klaus Schwab, who stepped down under murky circumstances. New leadership convened 2,500-plus leaders under the Age of Rupture theme. WEF co-president Andre Hoffman confirmed Schwab may return as a guest in 2027. The leadership transition signals structural change at the heart of the Great Reset architecture. Sources: Tralac, Yastia, Divex 3. WEF declares 2026 defining moment for CBDCs and digital assets. WEF framed 2026 as the global inflection point for CBDCs. China launched the world's first interest-bearing CBDC, eCNY, on January 1, 2026. 130-plus countries are actively exploring CBDCs. The ECB targets 2029 for digital euro issuance. WEF is positioning itself as the coordinating body for the global CBDC architecture rollout. Source: WEF 4, EU Digital Identity Framework. Consultation closes April 30, 2026. The EU Digital Identity Framework implementation consultation closes April 30, 2026. Digital wallet scaling and biometric continuous assurance are key 2026 trends. EU Digital Identity Regulation expected for adoption in 2026, enabling a potential digital euro pilot in mid-2027. This represents a significant step toward unified European digital ID and financial control infrastructure. Source: Think Digital Partners. 5. IMF World Bank Spring Meetings. $150 billion pledged. April 13-18, 2026. The IMF and World Bank pledged a combined $150 billion in new financing for developing nations hit by Middle East war energy shocks. Global growth was cut to 3.1%, already described as optimistic, with a 2.5% adverse scenario possible. Finance leaders expressed frustration at Washington's inability to resolve the crisis, reinforcing the push for supranational financial governance. Source: Reuters. Pillar 3, Technocracy Watch. 170+. Groups demand Meta halt. Facial recognition smart glasses. April 2026. A coalition including ACLU, EFF, Epic, and Access now demanded Meta immediately halt the name tag facial recognition feature for Ray-Ban and Oakley smart glasses. A leaked internal memo explicitly revealed Meta planned to exploit the dynamic political environment to launch when civil society groups would have their resources focused on other concerns. The letter also demands disclosure of any plans to share data with ICE and CBP immigration enforcement. Source: Biometric Update. 2. UK Met Police facial recognition. Rollout proceeds after legal challenge fails. April 21, 2026. A legal challenge against the Metropolitan Police's live facial recognition surveillance system failed on April 21, 2026. The rollout will now proceed without effective legal barriers, establishing normalized mass biometric surveillance infrastructure across the UK. Source: The Canary. 3. 3 critical global AI governance decisions. April 19, 2026. An April 19th analysis identifies 3 hinge decisions shaping the global AI architecture. 1. UN Global Dialogue on AI Governance. Framework versus fragmentation. 2. Foundation Model Classification under the EU AI Act. 3. US-EU AI chip export controls on China. All 3 will determine whether AI governance becomes a unified global control system or fractures into competing techno-blocks. Source: ETC Journal 4. Russia deploys sophisticated new VPN censorship. April 17, 2026. Russia implemented advanced VPN blocking described as a new, more sophisticated effort for censorship. The FSB was granted power to shut down cellular networks entirely. Human Rights Watch issued a detailed report on Russia's Digital Iron Curtain on March 12, 2026, a model increasingly watched by other governments. Source: France 24/5. Vietnam advances China-style social credit system via National Digital ID, 2026. Vietnam's Ministry of Public Security is implementing a digital citizen scoring system through VNeID, its national digital ID platform. Citizens' travel rights, government service access, and financial access will be linked to their score. The Diplomat reported Vietnam is close to launching, as of January 2026, representing the wider export of technocratic social control models beyond China. Source: The Diplomat Pillar 4. Biblical Fulfillment 1. Authentic Dead Sea Scrolls. Exhibit opens at Museum of the Bible, April 2026. The Museum of the Bible, Washington, D.C., opened a verified authentic Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit in April 2026. Previously unseen fragments of Psalms, Numbers, and Lamentations, confirmed excavated from Dead Sea caves and authenticated by the Israel Antiquities Authority, are now on display alongside a 4,000-pound Temple Mount stone and a pilgrimage road paving stone from the time of Christ. Source: Christianity Today. 2. Full Siloam Pool excavation commenced, March 22, 2026. The Israel Antiquities Authority commenced full excavation of the entire Siloam Pool, the site of Jesus' healing of the blind man, John 9, for the first time in history. A massive 2,800-year-old dam from the reign of King Hezekiah was also uncovered, confirming biblical engineering accounts described in 2 Kings 20 and Isaiah 22. The excavation is expected to yield significant scriptural validation. Source: City of David. 3. 2,000-year-old Jerusalem Pilgrimage Road opens to public, January 20, 2026. The ancient step street connecting the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount opened to the public on January 20, 2026, after 13 years of excavation. Features include intact Herodian paving stones, remnants of ancient shops, a mikveh, and a ceremonial podium, physically tracing the route walked by Jesus and the disciples during Passover pilgrimages. Source: Times of Israel. 4. Biblical Archaeology Review. Spring 2026. First Temple Beams and Nebuchadnezzar Inscriptions. The Spring 2026 issue of Biblical Archaeology Review features newly exposed wooden beams from the First Temple in Jerusalem and 2 new Nebuchadnezzar inscriptions. City of David excavations continue to yield direct links to the biblical record, with multiple finds corroborating Kings, Chronicles, and the prophetic books. Source: Biblical Archaeology Review. 5. Iran-Israel War and Biblical Prophecy Alignment, 2026. Prophecy ministries globally are reporting alignment of the 2026 U.S.-Israel attack on Iran, closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and Middle East escalation with Ezekiel 38:39, Isaiah 17, and Psalm 83 scenarios. Watchmen networks are documenting an unprecedented convergence of prophetic markers in real time. Source: Bible Prophecy Today. Pillar 5, Inverted Pyramid. IMF cuts global growth to 3.1%, global economy in the shadow of war. April 14, 2026. The IMF's April 2026 World Economic Outlook cut global growth to 3.1% under optimistic assumptions, already described as outdated and drifting toward 2.5%. A prolonged war could push the global economy into recession. Emerging market public debt is projected to reach 86% of GDP by 2031, setting conditions for IMF structural adjustment and accelerated global financial governance. Source: IMF 2, U.S. Senate votes 89-10 to ban Federal Reserve digital dollar until 2030, March 12, 2026. The U.S. Senate voted 89-10 to ban the Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC until 2030. However, the global CBDC architecture advances independently. China launched ECNY January 1, 2026. The ECB targets 2029, and the IMF continues CBDC capacity building globally, rendering the U.S. ban an internal containment measure only. Source: Forbes. 3. Vatican Trial of the Century resumes. After prosecution setbacks, February 2026. The Vatican trial of Cardinal Becciu and multiple officials, convicted 2023 of embezzlement in a failed $350 million London real estate deal, resumed in February 2026 after prosecution setbacks. Pope Leo XIV now inherits Vatican bank reform, a $6 billion institution beset by corruption. The trial continues to expose the Vatican's hidden financial networks and connections to global real estate and banking. Source: Jurist. 4. U.S. Treasury 2026. National Money Laundering Risk Assessment, April 2026. The Treasury's 2026 NMLRA identifies cybercrime, fraud, corruption, drug trafficking, and exploitation as key threats, with growing use of shell companies, cryptocurrency, and real-time payment systems by criminal networks, including state-linked networks tied to Iran, Russia, and North Korea, to obscure the flows of the inverted pyramid. Source: U.S. Treasury. 5. FinCEN proposes 10 to 30% whistleblower rewards for AML reporting, April 1, 2026. FinCEN's proposed rule would reward whistleblowers 10 to 30% of penalties over $1 for reporting money laundering and sanctions violations, creating a new official channel to expose hidden financial networks and begin dismantling the inverted pyramid from within. Source: Holland and Knight, Pillar 6. Awakening Report 1. Nationwide No Kings Day of Action, April 25, 2026, tomorrow. Thousands of events are planned across the U.S. for April 25th as part of the continuing No Kings movement, opposing the Iran war, immigration enforcement, and executive power consolidation. The movement is organizing through decentralized networks following the historic success of March 28th. Source: No Kings, The Guardian 2. March 28th, No Kings protests, 8 to 9 million participants, largest U.S. protest in history. The March 28, 2026. No Kings protests drew an estimated 8 to 9 million participants at 3,300 plus events, the largest coordinated protest day in U.S. history. 2/3 of protests occurred outside major cities, a 40% jump in smaller community participation. The movement represents mass non-compliance with unprecedented geographic breadth. Sources: The Guardian, Reuters. 3. Federal whistleblower protections being stripped, April 2026. OPM's February 2026. Schedule Policy Career Rule removes access to the Office of Special Counsel and Merit Systems Protection Board for reclassified federal employees. Critics warn this forces whistleblowers to appeal to the agencies retaliating against them, making protections merely symbolic, a deliberate dismantling of internal accountability mechanisms. Source: Federal News Network. 4. FinCEN Whistleblower Program opens new corruption exposure channel, April 2026. The new FinCEN Whistleblower Program, 10 to 30% rewards for AML sanctions tip-offs, creates a counterweight to the suppression of federal whistleblowers, offering financial incentives for insider exposure of hidden corruption networks, a significant new tool for the awakening movement. Source: FinCEN 5. Hungary election, alternative media credited in unseating Orban, April 2026. Reuters Institute's 2026 Journalism Trends Report identifies declining trust in mainstream media, driving growth of independent journalism. Hungary's April 2026 election, which unseated PM Viktor Orban, was partially attributed to alternative media and civil society networks circumventing state media control, demonstrating that truth media can produce tangible political change. Source: Reuters Institute Report, Psalm 127:1. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. Psalm 113:7. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with the princes of his people.